Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Why aren't you sitting at the front? You'll get bad marks. That's no good at all. You have to sit at the front because you won't be able to read that. I mean, I'm blind. I can't see that at all. Okay, so you're all here at the Digital Marketing Show, and I'm going to talk about things that are partly digital, but not always. So what I'm going to talk about is this. You'll hear a lot about data and digital and direct from everywhere, but you won't hear about this reminding people that we're actually human beings. We have a physical presence, we have a psychological bent to ourselves, and we act in a very different way. What I'm going to talk to you about is the blending of data, thinking data, and talking human. I assume you're here because, you know, I've not introduced myself. No one's noticed. You didn't notice. Why didn't you notice? You're just keeping quiet. Because, why? Why were you quiet? Because I was talking, it was rude to interrupt. There are social conventions and social norms that we all participate in. But actually, a social norm was I should introduce myself. My name's Marc Michaels. I'm from the Lateral Group. We're a marketing communications agency, all into customer engagement. That's enough of the advert. Right, so thinking data and talking human. Big data is very, very big. And it's scarily big most of the time. This is from Keith Weed, CMO Unilever, who need to talk to 7 billion people a day and get vast amounts of data going through their organisation, which does tend to scare people. Because every minute of the day, this is what's going on in terms of Google and Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Instagram. And actually, by the time I put that slide in my deck, it's out of date. I'm really getting fed up having to change that slide every few minutes by finding another source. So how can you understand more about your customers? Well, chances are they're actually telling you why they buy, why they donate, when they don't donate to charities, why they change their behaviours, or whatever it is you're trying to do. Why does sometimes my media work and sometimes that media doesn't work? They may be telling you on all of this stuff, buried in all of this data. Very difficult for companies. Now, I don't know how many of you are commercial companies, how many of you are agencies, how many of you are suppliers, I've no idea. It's very difficult because in most companies, it does scare them, they go and run away. Lack of direction, we don't have the skills, there's thousands of platforms, I'm confused, I'm going to hide. Where's all my data? Can I get to it? What analytics do I need to pull this stuff together? Very scary. Because all you're really trying to do is get that data and turn it into something useful so that you can create timely, relevant and motivating messages. I love being in agency pitches where the agency go through all the planning stuff and they go through all this stuff, how they've learned everything about it, and then they present the creative. Remember, the customer only sees the creative. They don't see all that planning stuff that went behind. They don't give a monkeys about that. All this stuff is going on in the background in order to get to this. Data is important. It's the fuel that allows you to do this. It helps you pinpoint the right people. People, not target markets, not campaigns. All of this stuff is military language, by the way. We target people. No, we talk to people. People, not target audiences. I like to ban the word target audience. Could we please sort that out? Could you sort that out for me? Ban the word target audience. That's your job. Thank you. So, it allows you to know what they like, what their preferences are, what their interests are. And sometimes they'll tell you if you're nice and you have a value exchange, and sometimes you have to infer that. If you have a transactional relationship, you can look at that and what they do, and it will give you triggers for communications. But only if you mine it for insights. Loads and loads of data is just loads and loads of data. You have to do something with it. It's crucial, but you have to find something exciting in it, otherwise you can drown in it. So most data models out there look at recency, frequency and value. Good, solid, predictive stuff. But there are actually other things going on in the real world in terms of person, time and place. For example, if the news in the economy is doom and gloom, you're not going to sell a pension because people aren't thinking about the future. Yeah, it doesn't matter how good your marketing is. If there's a closure of company in the area, that will have an effect locally on sales, on charitable donations, on all sorts of stuff that's going on. So in terms of what we're doing in predictive analysis at the moment, we're trying to add this context of place, person, place and time, pulling lots and lots of data feeds in to try and work out not just what happened, but why it happened. Because people's decisions to make and buy things or to donate to a charity is very much about what's going on in here. These are the kind of data feeds that we're pulling in, about 180 different data feeds, very exciting. Here's a case study. This is a thing called Right to Buy. I don't know if you've heard of, who's heard of Right to Buy? Yeah? It was a Margaret Thatcher initiative. Sadly, when I was in government, and I worked in government for 26 years, I worked on this first time round, so that's really scary and it ages me a great deal. We did all this wonderful stuff, nice door drops, nice direct mail, lots of good response, did some straight demographic profiling, 35 to 49-year-olds, income over 25k, living as. But then we thought, okay, hang on a minute, buying a house is a huge lifetime decision. So we ran it through our predictive analytics tool, which I'm not allowed to say what it's called, by the way, because at the moment we haven't gone public with it. And we found some really interesting things that had strong predictive power. One of them was a thing called, we called it the Niceness Index. So if you walk out of your house, you look 200 yards in either direction, and you like what you see, you are way more likely to respond to the Right to Buy campaign because you like the area you live in. It's not just about the house, you like the area that you live in. A psychological trigger. And it wasn't just response. We looked at the response, and then we looked at the sales. And whilst response came from this kind of band of Niceness Index, when it's sales, it came down to here. Reason is if your area was too nice, you couldn't afford to buy it. If your area wasn't nice enough, you didn't want to buy it. And so actually a huge factor that was going on in people's heads was about psychology. This is Domino's, one of our clients. They have franchise operations, and we centralise all their data through. And some of the interesting things that we found was that people will buy more pizza depending on the weather. But actually what weather? Anyone want to guess what weather it is? Raining, but it's not just drizzly rain, it's rainy rain. When it's bucketing down, people buy pizza. Or when there's sports on the TV, they buy pizza. So you can actually send out emails when there's a sports game on, and you will get better response. This is about people's context of what they're doing. But data is only part of the solution. If you're just thinking about data, you'll see what happens, but you won't know why it's happening. So data is dead unless you know what to do with it. Most organisations think we are acting like this man here. This is the original Spock, by the way, not the copy. He's not bad, the copy, but we prefer the original. But actually, most of the time, and it's 90% of the time, so don't get this wrong, by cognitive psychologists, we think like this gentleman here. Because we are lazy, because we have two brains. Now, not literally two brains. There are two things going on in our head. One of them is called Systems 1, which is intuitive, emotional, it's very quick. It's the way we get through our lives, because otherwise we would just grind to a halt because there's far too many inputs coming in any one day. Very easy to do, very holistic, associative. I smell new mown grass. What do I think of? This gentleman here. What do you think of?
Freshly mown grass.
Freshly mown grass. What do you smell? You smell it. What do you think? You think of summer. Thank you. Systems 2 people calculate. My son's like this because my son's got Asperger's. He's an extreme male brain. System 2 Spock. Think it through. But actually, most of the time, we end up not making a decision because there's too many inputs. And we have what's called cognitive dissonance, very hard. It's very hard to do that. We don't really want to engage that. That's really complicated. So most of the time, we like to be here. And there's a science, kind of, called behavioural economics. Who's heard of behavioural economics? No one? Okay, so this is really important. If you're in anything to do with marketing, and I'm assuming you are since you are at the digital marketing show, marketing is merely applied psychology. It's understanding how people's brains tick. And this is another form of data. And here are some books you need to read. Nudge, Predictively Irrational, Influence. These are good books as an introduction to these kinds of words that you will hear in the psychological marketing industry. So what do I mean? Let's give you some examples. Choice architecture. Who's signed up for organ donation? Put your hands up. Okay. I gave this similar presentation in Norway, and 30% of the Norwegians have signed up to organ donation. So I said, you have an opt-in system. Because if you have to opt in, like these countries here, you won't do it. But if you change the default, it's called choice architecture, yeah, you put the sweeties far away and you put the nice green vegetables here so that you can reach them, people, it's less obvious effort because we're Homer and we don't tend to opt out. Yeah, these are the countries where they have an opt-out system. 90% of people sign up for organ donation. We're too scared to do it here, but what we are doing is this. Auto-enrolment, where everybody's going to be enrolled into a pension scheme, yes? You're all aware of that? Because if you aren't, then your companies aren't doing the right job here. By changing the default and relying on people's lethargy. This is what marketers used to call inertia selling. But it's actually got a psychological point behind it. There's also public pledge, I'm in, and social norms. Social norms. We're all individuals. Who hasn't seen the film? Who's seen Life of Brian? We're all individuals? Thank you. I'm not. We actually aren't individuals. There's a nice book called Herd, which talks about the fact that we are social animals. We like to be part of a pack. If everybody's doing it, it must be the sensible thing to do. Nobody asked me what my name was, yeah, because everybody else wasn't. You said no one else did. You just conformed to a social norm. Because the new social norm around was, oh, okay, I'm not going to do that because no one else is doing that. We always look to other people in terms of the way we operate. So here's O-Power, who are combining big data, lots of data coming in about people's use of energy, to create personalised pieces of mail and emails that kick in, and they tell them what they're doing in comparison with people who are in their area. If they say you're doing worse than the people there, they tend to put more effort into saving energy because you like to conform to the social norm as long as you're aware of the social norm. So they crunch loads and loads of smart meter data. You are doing fabulously, sir. Can I shake your hand? Absolutely marvellous. You're so attentive. I'm very impressed. It's very good. You have got so far along in this presentation. You've dealt with the introduction. You've dealt with big data. You've had the case studies, which were fantastic, weren't they? Yeah, they were good case studies, really solid. And you must be the best person here because you're so receptive and you're giving me all that feedback. So thank you very much. Okay, so what you've just seen is chunking. Chunking is about the fact that we don't like big problems. As human beings, we hate it and we want to run away and hide in a corner. But if you can make it into small little blocks, who's signed up to a thing online and seen the little blocks at the top that tells you how far you are along? That's chunking, because it gives you a feeling of self-efficacy, that I can get to the end of this, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you get a little bit of a reward, or ideally you should, each time you go through that. So you're doing really well. Here's Barclays. Barclays used to have a big campaign with a chap who used to walk along going like this. I'm the big bank. We're huge. We're massive. Big bank. Big bank. That campaign actually did really, really badly, and people left Barclays. Their next campaign was much more sensible. One small step, because they recognised that that big thing was scary, and people wanted manageable chunks to try and look after their finances. It's about small steps. And I actually met the people who ran that from Barclays, and they were very, very good, because that's exactly what they were trying to do. Let's go back to right to buy. I don't know if you noticed it. We have chunking here to get you through the eligibility process. And more council and housing association tenants are considering buying their homes. Perhaps you're one of them. Social norm. Re-establishing the right to buy was the right thing to do. And as a result of all this stuff, sales have more than doubled in the past year. Now, whether you agree with the policy or not is neither here nor there. It's been a very successful marketing campaign. Authority. Who's heard of the Milgram Experiment? You have. Good. Okay. This gentleman here is in a sealed room. You can't see him, but you can hear him. This lady here, what's her name? Claire. Claire has a little dial. When she turns the dial, he will get an electric shock. Could you please turn the dial? Did it hurt? Okay. Dial a bit more. More power. Ow, ow, ow. More power. Trust me, I'm a doctor. Not the doctor, by the way, although I am working on that. That hurts. Okay, so Claire actually, in experiments, because a doctor, a person in a white coat, told Claire to do it, she would actually administer a lethal electric shock to this poor gentleman over here. Just because the doctor told her to do it. Because we tend to react to authority. Here's a nice use of authority. It's about cancer, with the GP, who's friendly this time, telling people that they need to think about their symptoms and present earlier. And it was very successful. Pilot areas GPs twice as likely to see an increase in people presenting earlier. Because if you can catch it earlier, it's more likely to be cured. By the way, it's next to impossible to get the word poo into a radio advert. I don't advise you try it. Loss aversion. If we own something, if it belongs to us, we are twice as likely to worry about it than gaining something. It literally is. You will lose X pounds a year if you don't insulate your loft. Works better than you will save X pounds, because we own it. That's exactly why things like Netflix and Love Film, who I worked for a little while, and Sky work, because they're trying to get you to own the product through the free trial. If you go and buy those products and you use the thing 2 or 3 times in the first month, you're hooked, because the decision becomes, do I want to give up the service that I have, rather than, actually I never got around to using it, I don't own it. It's irrelevant. Loss aversion is very, very important, because the question becomes, how much are you willing to pay before you give it up? Okay, quick maths question. Of 100 patients, 10 are dead after 5 years, versus of 100 patients, 90 are alive after 5 years. Who prefers the first one? Who prefers the second one? Why are they the same mathematically? They're exactly the same. This is called framing. How you frame something actually gets people to react. So if you're selling cars in a boat show, sell Rolls Royce because they appear cheap. If you're stinking rich, you go to a boat show, but you're not stinking rich enough, you'll come out and you go, oh, I can afford the roller, because it's cheap by comparison. This is one I suggested to Love Film when I was working for them. All those films and things you can get for a couple of cups of coffee. And then Bupa have just run it. Bless them. How nice is that? Framing. You can get health insurance that could cost you less than a daily cup of coffee. It's a frame, because that's a currency value in people's heads. Here's a nice couple of examples from Austria and the US. See, he's smiling now. Which one did you smile about? You like this one? Yeah? Everybody likes that one. It's a very good one in terms of framing. Excellent marketing. Very cheap. Let's go back to Domino's. Domino's data showed us that there was a midweek spike. So we got the data, that's great. And affluent families buy them frequently, but they spend a lot when they actually do buy it. We listened into what happens and found that school clubs happen midweek, Wednesday being the most popular, by the way. From a psychological standpoint, poor mum is really busy that particular day and has to collect them from the school club, and frantically runs home and can't think of cooking anything. which led us to the core thought. We're here to help you survive the week, translated with our friends and agency partners into the Mum's Midweek Rescue Service, tapping into a psychological need. Timely, relevant and motivating. Blending data, research, psychological triggers to understand what is happening in people's heads, to build on the motivators, reduce the barriers, act on the triggers. So, questions to ask yourselves as you go away. I hope I'm doing all right for time. Yes, I am. Can you recognise your customers across all your touch points? Nice data question. Can you handle and analyse all the data? Nice data question. Is it all in one place? Nice data question. And then it gets harder. Can you derive insight from that vast amount of data? Can you then create business rules that will allow you to manipulate that data and create communications coming off of the back of it that are near real time as you can get, that will get acted upon? And then here's the clincher. When you've done all of that, which by the way is very hard, and of course at Lateral Group we can help you, second ad of the day, is your marketing communications content grounded in data, research and human psychology? Are you thinking data but talking human? Thank you very much. Any questions?